hello and welcome to Shelf Indulgence Book Chats. Today I have with me Rebecca Devitt. And Rebecca is a second generation homeschool mom, author, blogger, and YouTuber living in Australia with her husband and two children. This former medical student left behind advanced studies in favor of staying home to educate her children. A woman of faith, she felt called to encourage others to adopt the homeschooling lifestyle. Drawing from her personal experience, she began a blog, which quickly became her book, Why on Earth Homeschool? The Case for Australian Christian Homeschooling. Not long after, she launched her website, How Do I Homeschool? Followed by a YouTube channel of the same name. Her goal? To help parents homeschool joyfully and save time, money, and trouble. Welcome, Rebecca.
Hi there, Kimberly. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing well, and I guess I should say it's a Tuesday afternoon here in a balmy 101. Thank you very much in
Oh,
Texas, but good morning to you in Australia.
thank you. Well, it's quite cool this morning because middle of winter here because we're on the other side of the
Hmm.
globe.
Yes,
Mm, quite cool.
I could go for a little bit of that right about now.
I know it's funny because I always see Americans and when I get online with them, and they're always in the opposite side of season, which I find really interesting. So you guys be in the middle of winter, and I'll be sweating it out
Mhm.
here in Australia.
Yes, we'll think of you when we have our next unexpected ice storm. We'll think of you in lovingly warm thoughts because we're not equipped for it here at Texas. Well, let's start out with talking about your book today. And I'll have to say, I
Mm,
do love your book. You wrote it a couple of years ago. The Why on Earth Do I Homeschool? The Case
hmm
for Australian Christian Homeschooling. I feel like it touched on many of the same reasons that I initially decided to homeschool our son 5 years ago. But tell us a little bit of your story. What prompted you to write a book?
Yeah, so I was crazy about homeschooling because I went to school. I really didn't enjoy my school experience, and my parents homeschooled me, and I loved it. I love spending time with my parents and my brothers, and my academics took off. So many things took off. I was so much happier. Um, and then when I was at school, I was sort of starting to walk away from God, and for me, my faith is really
Mm,
important. And this was as a 7-year old. It was very palpable, that kind of feeling. And then when I started homeschooling, I very much came back to God. I developed my parents were really strong on getting me to read a chapter of the Bible a day. So I developed that habit, which was fantastic. And I came
mm,
back essentially and I became a really passionate Christian. And I'm a very passionate Christian now. Um, just, I mean, if God is not true, then there's nothing else. Where else have we to go? And so I think out of my faith, I kind of had this conviction that homeschooling is a great way to go because it's a great tool. So it's not
mm.
something, it's not a panacea, but it's a great tool where you can use to shape your children's faith, help you do that with the help of God. Um, and so that's why I was very passionate about homeschooling. So one of my friends who was about my age, she had a child and she was married to a homeschooler and she was like, I don't know, should I, shouldn't I? And so I thought, well, I'll just write a page, just, sharing the pros or the reasons you might homeschool.
Mhm,
And then that page
mhm.
turned into 16 pages, uh, PDF. And at that point I gave it to her. And then
Mm.
I went, well, I'm 16 pages through. Why not write a book? And so
Why
I
not?
was, that's right. Yeah. So at the time I was at medical school, and things were very uh, yeah, long story short, I ended up being quite sick and quit medical school. And during my sickness, it was about 3 years. I think I was in medical school and I asked God to humble me. And God was
Mm,
very gracious with that. And I got sick, very sick for 3 years. And I still struggle with basically sensitized pain issues. They called it fibromyalgia, which is still
mhm,
kind of the
mhm.
label I live with now. But that meant I had lots of time to write my book, and I couldn't go and work because I wasn't well enough. And then after I wrote my book, I thought, I have to have a website to promote that. And then after I had my website, I was writing my blogs, and they're like, well, the best blogs have great videos on them. And I was like, oh, I'll start a YouTube channel. And so the YouTube channel started, and then I started the YouTube channel, and then like, what do you promote on a YouTube channel? And they're like, do a course. And I'm like, oh, great. I'll be able to teach parents how to start homeschooling properly. All these issues that I see them make, I can just teach them how to get rid of them and start homeschooling on the right foot. And so that's how my parenting program, which is an online course, came into being. So that is the long story.
I love how you made that sort of, just so succinctly, like, oh, well, this happened and this happened, because what I heard instead was, okay, God's going to put this in your path. Are you going to pick it up? And you did. And God's going to put this in your path next. Are you going to pick that up? And you did. So it just sounds like you put it in this nice little succinct story, but it just sounds like God gave you all that you needed, and He made a way, and you walked in obedience.
Oh, it's been so much fun, and you're right. I feel like every morning I wake up at 6 o'clock and I read my Bible and I pray, and it helps to start the day off right. And I say, God, can you lead me and show me what you want me to do? And I find that He's very gracious.
He is. He's such a gentleman. And He'll give us those gentle little nudges that we need, even if we're not sure. He just kind of knowingly sits back and lets us get to it, but He'll just still nudge us to it, kind of like we have to do with our children, because we are His children.
We're sheep. We need it. We're quite stubborn.
Very true. I keep thinking of that one meme that's circulating right now, when you're that one sheep that's over there hopping away, just sort of doing your own thing, but you are the one that Jesus goes after when He left the 99. So
Absolutely. I love that. What did you think of the book, Kimberly, when you read it?
it had some very powerful moments in it. I actually have a little bit about me. I have a background in public education. I worked in my pre-mommy, homeschool mommy life. I worked for almost a decade in public education, and I resonated with many of the things that you pointed out there. And if you just look at, as far as what children face, especially families of faith, when you go into public school. And this was, even when I worked in public education, this was before social media took off quite as bad as it is. It was just starting. MySpace was more of a thing back then, before Facebook was really getting started, and then Instagram, and then all of the others that are out now. So I feel like it has probably gotten a lot worse than even from what you had written about in your book, and then even from when I was working in public education. I feel like it's just an even bigger obstacle and bigger hurdles for kids to deal with now than it was even back in my day, for lack of a better way of putting it. I feel blessed and fortunate that I was able to grow up without having to face all of that. But from your book, seeing all of that kids are facing now, the statistics in there, the numbers are there. It's written very much with it makes a case. It is very much, okay, here's your data, here's your statistics, and not just of what is going on in terms of bullying or in terms of the negative effects, because we are taught to live in this world but not not be of this world. I keep thinking of Romans 12 too. But it makes me think of the statistics are there, how many kids leave the faith, even if they go through, when they start to leave home. How many? I think it's like 2 out of 3. And I'm like, wow, that's phenomenal when you think about those numbers. And as a parent now, it's startling. It's startling.
That's right. And I grew up in a homeschool group, and I just saw how the kids had so much more of an opportunity to connect with God than I saw with a lot of my school children. Like, the school children seemed to be rushing here and there, and they didn't seem to have time to just stop and think about God and meditate. And when I was at home with my dad particularly, we used to talk about, I remember he used to get up quite early in the morning because he had medical issues. And we would just talk about God and politics and really so many other things for 3 hours in the morning sometimes. Just such big slabs of time. Oh, he was on night shift too, so that made that quite easy to do. But just these great opportunities. And the school kids, that would never happen, those massive chunks of time. So that was really wonderful to be able to do that with my dad. And great, we
Yeah.
have I've got such a close bond with my folks now too.
And that's really what it's about, that having our children there and that relationship first, because before you can teach your children anything, you have to have that relationship first. So getting to
Absolutely.
have that time with your family, and now that we get to have that time with our children, it just pours in more into that relationship.
Absolutely.
In talking about your book, the one thing that stood out for me so much that is so important. We've recently come off of COVID, and I know a lot of it is still around, but your book really talked about what stood out for me is community and the importance of community. And you and I were sharing off camera earlier that there's not a lot of Christian homeschoolers in Australia. There's really not even a lot of Australian Christian or Australian homeschool bloggers, whether there's a few. I think you said that might be secular. But in all honesty, not that I've done a ton of research, but I really don't think I know of another Christian homeschool Australian blogger. You're kind of the poster girl.
Yeah.
But that's a good thing.
No, there's really not many, and it's interesting when you look at the proportions in America compared to Australia. American homeschoolers tend to be more religious and faith-based. Like, there are definitely some secular homeschoolers and people who are of other religions, and they might be homeschooling because of special needs. But in Australia, it's I wouldn't say it's the opposite, but the proportion of Christian homeschoolers is much, much smaller. And so a lot of people doing it here are doing it because they're saying, the public education system is not going to work for my child. There's loads of people who have children with autism who are homeschooling, or special needs, or just other parents who think that they can give their children a better education, because there are so many statistics out there now that show that homeschooling is the way to go and will really offer a better education if parents have time to love and care for their children.
Yes. And to tailor their education to their child's particular needs.
That's right. It's so wonderful for that, isn't it? Because you can go for as long as you want, and then your child can stop if they need a break, or
Mm-hmm.
you can accelerate. Sometimes with Luke, he'll do 3 math lessons in a day, and other days he's been sick the last couple of days. So I've just said, let's not do school, honey. You obviously don't need
Mm-hmm.
that today. Yeah. And it's the
No, that
proportion here is, Kimberly, it's something like 1%. We've got a lot of unregistered homeschoolers, whereas I think in America, what's the percent there now? We probably need Brian Ray to do another study for us, don't we?
we probably do, and it varies. And here it depends on with the way the Homeschool Legal Defense Association has it outlined by different states as far as what the regulations are. We live in Texas, and it's a very free state, very hands off. We don't have to really keep records. We can just simply it's very, very, we have lots of freedoms. We don't have to do any state mandated testing, and we don't have to report to the school what we're doing. We can choose any curriculum we want. Now, any other state, completely different set of rules.
Yeah, it's a little bit similar here, but they're a little bit more uniform. They tend to be a bit stricter here.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for me, I have to outline an educational plan. I need to send it in. I need to do an interview with the homeschool inspector. It used to be that the homeschool inspector would come out and talk to you and the child, and then after that they would see if you're doing the program, and they check on you every year, and you get 2 yearly. You get a registration for 2 years. So that's kind of how they do it here, in
Okay.
most states, probably. Yeah, not Texas style.
Well, Texas is pretty free. I'm not a native Texan. I've lived here for 10 years now, but I don't think I'm ever leaving. We really we've put roots. We are staying in Texas. We really love it here. But it is not only do we have much freedom, a lot of freedom, we have a lot of resources as well. So throw a rock at a homeschooler, but there's also just tons of support. We're very lucky. It could be because we live right in the DFW Metroplex, Dallas Fort Worth, which is a huge metropolitan area, but we just have tons of resources. I don't know what it's like in your area for resources and community.
Nil. Nil. I often dream of like opening a homeschool center where, homeschool families can just come. And they started a homeschool co-op the other day, and let's just say it was run by people who were not very, very much not faith-based, to the point where I went, I can't come anymore because it's so anti. This is the whole reason I don't have my kids in public school. So, yeah, and again, that's that secular homeschool influence, which tends to predominate sometimes here a bit more.
There's just as many secular homeschoolers here. We just have more, more of them. But as far as not having any support, I think that's what makes expanding from your book is wonderful, and it gives your book is packed with tons of resources. It's definitely what I would say a good starting point. But where you are now, I think, is more interesting. I mean, I know that's Shelf Indulgence Book Chats, and we have talked a little bit about it, but I think what you're doing now with your parenting program, especially for families in Australia, but also here stateside, because we can glean so many resources from what you have, you're providing that very important component, which is community. I think we all, coming off of COVID, we all know what isolation feels like and how the impacts of that are lasting. They're going to be lasting for generations after what has happened from, just kids with, I'll be honest, I'm still a licensed counselor, but I have several friends who are speech therapists, occupational therapists, physiotherapists, and just seeing the amount of developmental delay that they're seeing show up in their practice from kids just not being able to be children and interact with one another, which is a natural and normal thing for them to be able to do. That is the power of community, from the parents who need it to the children who need it. So getting back to what you're doing on your website, you are creating community. You're saying, hey, I'm giving something out there that I need and I would like to have, because clearly that is something you are creating not just for people out there, but also for yourself. Correct?
It's been great to get emails from so many homeschool mums saying, I'm after this sort of a program. What do you recommend? And trying to go through what would be best for their family, and they've got maybe different age groups, or they've got children with special needs. What would be best for them? Because it's been great. I think I've researched hundreds of curriculum at this point, and it's been really lovely to be able to help homeschool mums and provide information and resources for them. Yeah.
Did you find that there was an increase? You were technically kind of, well, especially based on when your book was written, it came out in 2017. So you've been doing this for quite a while before the pandemic hit. So did you find that there was an increase just in Australia, or at least near you, people reaching out to you, knowing you were a homeschooler, seeking your advice and looking for direction from you?
Yeah. So I have to admit, 90% of my audience comes from, maybe 80% comes from America. So most of the people I interact with, Kimberly, are American. Although I do get Australians, and they tend to interact more with me because I think they're like, oh, it's an Australian. There's no other Australians doing this. And so they tend to get really excited, which is
It's
so
my
lovely.
people.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And so, yeah, there was, it's crazy when you look at the graphs of the people coming through the website. Huge spike with COVID. Huge. Yeah, it's been massive. So it's been exciting to be able to help so many homeschool parents and pray about, where God wants to lead me, which tends to be lots of homeschool reviewing these days. I just got Not Grass is lovely. They just sent me a big box of their curriculum, Adam to Us. So I'm going to do a homeschool haul video. They tend to go off on YouTube soon. And
We'll look for that.
Yeah. I'm looking forward to kind of going through the curriculum too.
I'm familiar a little bit with knotgrass, but I will definitely look out for that video because I've heard good things. So I'm interested to hear your take on it as well.
Oh, they're wonderful. Them and Apologia. I've been really impressed with their curriculum. Yeah, yeah. Very, very
We are
hands-on.
huge Apologia science fans over here. We do a little show for my son with my husband because he teaches science in our house. Not that I don't want to do the experiment. I'll just be honest. So I turn that over to my husband, who's the engineer. He loves blowing up the kitchen. And I'm like, that's terrific as long as you clean it up when you're done. But we love Apologia. So Apologia is a lot of fun. A lot of hands-on experiments with Apologia.
Yeah, and you know the other thing, and this isn't talked about a lot, but I love homeschooling because I'm a lifelong homeschooler myself. I am so still learning with my kids. You know, at the moment I'm doing Latin, and as I do my Latin course, I'll point out to my little 6-year-old. I'll say, "Hey, Luke, this means that in Latin, and you're going to use that little phrase. Like if you inter means between, and you will use that so often in your life." And so we as parents are learning alongside our kids, and I love that. I love that you can read literature-based curriculum to your kids, or like we do the BJU Press math, and my math skills are having to get faster now because my little boy's learning it. Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So it's nice going through it
Yes,
all.
we use BJ Math as well. So that's why I'm like, oh, yes, okay, I do remember this. It's like training wheels with a bike. I can do this again.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and they BJU make it so easy too, don't they?
They do. They do. And I'm not strong in math. Now, you went to med school, but I'm not strong in math. So it's nice for me to have that little bit of hand holding. I need that little bit of hand holding for me.
Certainly, yeah, yeah. I think, yeah. I mean, I think just being busy parents as well, it's helpful to have that help.
No, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. And it's nice to learn along with them because so much of what we it didn't have the same, well, it's seeing things fresh through your child's eyes. You get to see it for the first time again completely differently. So many things that we've learned or that I know I learned as a child I didn't quite appreciate, but I appreciate it so much more now. For me, it's history in particular. We use a curriculum where we use Veritas Press. We've also used Story of the World before, but we use Veritas Press cards. And I love that we learn history chronologically. So that makes so much more sense for me. I can remember growing up learning history. It was just a bunch of random dates and things that were just kind of tossed in there with no real context. So it didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But now, learning it again, it feels like the first time actually with my son because I'm getting to learn it and within a context that makes sense. I even purchased, I'll show you here as I pull it up, I'm learning the Bible chronologically for the first time. It makes more sense to study it chronologically. I think that's just the way I'm wired, but it's the same topic. I've studied the Bible obviously my whole life, but learning it this way, the same way learning history in this chronological order, just gives it a little bit of different context. And that's the journey that we get to go on with our kids, which is what makes this so beautiful.
It's interesting talking about curriculum because I think the most important curriculum to use is not from any company. It's simply sitting down with your family and reading the Bible, the unadulterated Bible. For me, I mean, I'm not against Bible curriculum, but for me, like their Bible curriculum is going to be largely us sitting down, reading the Bible, going through it, you know, maybe even going through the Bible study notes on it. I go through the Matthew Henry's commentary alongside the Bible. And I think that is just so important to have a really thorough knowledge of the Bible. And for me, that's the big focus in our, because, you know, the Bible is where we get our wisdom, where we get God talking directly to us. And it's so much more important than, you know, our 1, 2, 3 ABCs.
That is so true. Absolutely. I agree with you wholeheartedly. If you left off the other components that you didn't teach and they had that, they're prepared for life.
You know, in the old days, people used to teach, even in the schools, they used to teach with the Bible as their primary textbook. And I love that. And at some point, they've just dropped it. And it's such a loss such a loss, which is sad. But we can do that still in our homeschools. We can use that as our primary textbook. My son often goes
Yes, we
to
can.
sleep at night. Yeah, he often goes to sleep at night listening to the Bible on audio, and he does it so often. And he comes throughout the day and he says, "Oh, I heard this the other day," and he'll quote a direct Bible passage in context because it'll be in the context of the Bible story, and I'll go, "Oh, that is so good to hear," and it's so encouraging.
Yeah.
So it's just beautiful to see them growing.
And that's when you know that, okay, yeah, my job, not that my job is done, but my work is going well as a parent, as a mom, as discipling your children, which is one of the most important things, if not the most important things that you're going to do for your child. So, and
Absolutely.
it's like I think with therapy sometimes, or back when I used to be a therapist, we don't always get to see what the outcome of our labors is going to be with our clients. You know, they work with us, they leave us, and they go on. And sometimes I know we wonder as parents, okay, is that getting in? Is what I'm teaching and what I'm saying getting in? But when you get just that little one, being with them more often or all the time, when you're a homeschool parent, you get to see more of that. They're not away from you for 8 hours a day. So you get to see more of the fruit from the seeds that you've sown. And there's nothing that compares to it. Nothing.
Absolutely. Yes, I often feel, I mean, it's certainly more work, but I often feel that school mums are sometimes missing out on seeing their kids learn firsthand and having that joy of being able to say, I taught him to read. That was me. And that's just that's such a thrill to be able to do that. And as I said, learn alongside your children.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, all of your work progressing forward from the book has now led you to, like you said earlier, you've now created YouTube videos and now you've created some course content and you even have now a homeschool parenting program. Tell us a little bit about what is involved in the homeschool parenting program and how parents can benefit from it.
Yeah. So I guess I've been in homeschooling circles. So I started homeschooling when I was 7. So we had this amazing church group, and we just had lots of community basically growing up. And then as I grew up, I spent loads of time blogging and researching curriculum and writing my book, obviously. And now I'm homeschooling myself. I think I've been homeschooling Luke for a couple of years. So not like lots of practical experience in homeschooling, but I was homeschooled and very much have chatted to my parents about that as well. And our homeschool's going really well. And I thought, I just see a lot of homeschool mums starting and then burning out. And there's all these common mistakes that they seem to make that if only they were able to know about how to navigate those deep waters. And because honestly, the first year is the hardest year. If they can just push through that year and hopefully work their way through those issues, it just gets so much better and so much richer. Things get easier. It's like you go in there with this really wooden model and you're just trying to keep yourself above water. And then as you've been homeschooling for a while, you start to figure it out, and then you start to get into your groove, and then you start to, modify things for your children, and then things start to get, if not easier, more manageable. You figure out how to do it. It might get more crazy, but you figure out how to do it. And so I made my homeschool parenting program for new people who were going to go into the homeschooling world, and sort of felt like they were quite stressed and they didn't know how they were going to do it. And so this just gives you so much confidence. That's the big thing. It's a confidence that you can do this. And so we go through so many things like how to start homeschooling, how to get a curriculum, talking about the laws, talking about habit training, even all this sorts. We go through all the homeschooling methods. We go through the learning styles. I think there's like 40 to 50 big topics that we cover in there, and then lots of printables and a book list, and there's just so much in there that you'll need, and that will really help the homeschool journey. Because I was like, these are the things that I've really seen that homeschool moms need, and talking about planning and routines and that sort of stuff. So that's the big aim, is to really help people start their journey off well. So it's essentially an online 101 homeschool course, and I get really a bit silly in there too to try and keep it engaging.
No, and that just sounds like almost not inundated. That sounds, but it's almost like the more the better. They can pick and choose from it, and those are all the questions that they're going to have. Once they get past the you homeschool, I could never do that. Which you must be so incredibly patient, or any of the other typical myths or things that and that's one thing you did debunk. You did a lot of that debunking in your book, which I did love that.
Yes.
All of the traditional myths that come with it. And you almost teach moms or parents as well how to respond to those myths as well, which is very empowering. And that is what we need. Sometimes you just don't know what to say. And I agree with you that first year is the hardest year. But as you stick with it, it's like anything else. You get a bit more comfortable. It doesn't mean that challenges aren't going to come your way with it, but you get more confident in your ability to handle the challenges as they arise.
That's right. Yeah, Kimberly, you realize it's only homeschooling.
Yes, you do. You do. I mean, and it's not anything that you have to panic about. So many things that we sort of knee-jerk reaction and panic to. I'm like, no, it's homeschooling. It's not brain surgery. It's not cancer. It's homeschooling. Yes, you can have the choice of how you choose to look at it. Of, oh my goodness, all of my child's education falls on my shoulders. Oh my goodness, or oh my goodness, all of my child's education falls on my shoulders. I can do this. Who would you trust? Yourself or the world?
Well, the other thing is it's you can rely on God too, because He's got your back, and you just, like, as homeschool mums, I think we just pray in the mornings and we go, "Oh God, help me, because I can't do this myself a lot of the time. My day is too big," and often I pray, "God, please help me to have so much time. I'm sitting down with a cup of tea at the end of the day, kicking my heels because, I've got it all done in your power." And so often that happens. I need to pray it more.
Yes, I will second that. I will second that. I think for me, I'm often guilty of going, oh, God's busy. He has the entire universe. He doesn't need me to bother him right now. I'm not kidding. That is literally my thought. I'm like, okay, but wait. My life, my home is no less important than any other. Go to God with everything, big and small. It's okay. So how can people get involved with the homeschool parenting program?
Yeah. So on my website, it's called howdoihomeschool.com. I think if you just go onto the homepage, you can just easily find prompts where you can go to find links to the homeschool parenting program. So it's pretty easy to get online. So if you go howdoihomeschool.com, and you'll find it there. But I've made a special coupon for It's Only Homeschooling, so we can put that in the link below, show notes, that sort of stuff, so you can get that. It's pretty affordable, because I think I've realized that, homeschool moms, we don't have loads of money a lot of the time, and I wanted to make it affordable for everyone. If, you can just go in. It's a really high quality course, but the aim is to make it affordable for everyone, so that just homeschool moms can go in there and get the help they need and the support. And you can always reach out to me at any point as well. And a lot of my students will ask me questions, especially about curriculum, which I'm more than happy to answer. And yeah, I just love interacting with other homeschoolers.
Excellent. We will definitely put links to that in the show notes. And there's going to be a little tutorial as well up here somewhere where I'm going to go through a little bit and show you a little bit about what Rebecca's website looks like and how you can navigate it. Okay. Okay, we are in several of the same social media circles, but I noted you as a standout from a few of your YouTube videos. There's some that are, you have a ton of different YouTube videos out there, some that are
Mm.
just absolutely hysterical when you need that humor break. And there's that are so informative where you teach us all about different types of curriculum. So I'm definitely going to send people over to your YouTube channel, which is
Mm.
How to Homeschool. So please go check out Rebecca Devitt's YouTube channel for all sorts of information related to homeschooling. But especially, I connected with you. You popped up in a video for this new community called Made to Homeschool. This is something that is very different and very new. It's almost like having a homeschool convention right on your laptop. So, can you tell
Mm.
us about your involvement with Made to Homeschool and what Made to Homeschool is? Tell us all about it.
Yeah, so Made to Homeschool was launched, I think, last month, and it's a group of basically homeschool YouTubers and other influencers who are just contributing. So there's contributors, and we all, it's like it's, I guess, with a lot of other platforms, you have one influencer who's running the whole show, and then it's the other homeschool moms who join who are creating most of the community. But in this case, you've got like 30 contributors who are always in on the community. We're kind of required to go in there and interact with people, if we want to be a contributor, because that way we're being actually active. And so a lot of us are really volunteering a lot of our time to new homeschool moms, and just trying to love them and teach them how to homeschool well. Because I guess as a YouTuber, you sit there and for hours each day, you're nutting out the best way to solve this program because you're like, well, I'm about to teach this to a whole bunch of people on YouTube. I better know how to do it. And so
Yeah.
certainly for me, yeah, I've written over 300 articles on my website. I've got probably about 50 videos on my first channel, and this one's kind of, it's probably got 125. So that's a lot of topics that, just for me, I've thought through. And a lot of the other homeschool mums have been homeschooling for, 10, 15, 20 years. And they have
Mm.
so much knowledge that it's like they're educating themselves practically every day. And then they spend
Mhm.
time thinking and reflecting on it. And I think that's what you're getting with a lot of the Made to Homeschool contributors going in there. They're all Christian homeschool moms, which are beautiful. And so if you ask a question, that gets answered really quickly, and then also the community gets in and they can chat about that. So that's that side. So I guess it's a bit like a Facebook for homeschool groups. But they also have lots of training. So um, there's also live hangouts, so you can just go in there and hang out and chat, just kind of like we are, Kimberly. And you can
Mhm.
ask your questions, and they're so friendly and so much fun. A lot of them are really fun personalities too. Um, and yeah, then they have webinars on. If they're past webinars, you can just watch the replay. But then they also have live webinars where you can sign in and ask questions, and have them answered. Um, yeah. So and there's other things as well which I can't remember. Um, Going on as well. Oh, that's right. There's loads of blogs and printables. I just submitted a whole bunch of printables for each different month. We're required to kind of put out either a video or a blog article. So it's just an education platform as well for homeschool mums. Oh, that's right. And I think I don't know if they're doing it yet, but they're going to do one-on-one Kimberly homeschool coaching. So you and a
Oh.
homeschool expert, a YouTube blogger or vlogger, can sit down like for a session and chat things through. Yeah, so I don't know if they're doing that already, but yeah, that's Made to Homeschool. So it's a pretty exciting platform, and I was really
Yeah.
blessed to have a chat to Brandon. So he's the guy who started running it, um, and to get to know him last year, he was actually teaching me how to do YouTube well. That's how I got involved with him, and he's just beautiful.
Okay.
He was a pastor, and he got the same thing, basically fibromyalgia like me, and
Mm.
couldn't work in his pastor's job anymore, so he had to quit. And then he's just started. He has a PC kind of background, so yeah, that's how that started. He was just praying and meeting lots of homeschool mums, and he's like, "How can I marry this together?" And he's like, we need community. And so this is what
Yes.
he's created. Yeah. Mm.
That sounds absolutely amazing. I've only looked at it just a little bit, and I am going to do a little bit of video as well here to kind of show everyone as they're listening, because this is the one podcast that I put strictly on YouTube. I'm not using this on any other. It was kind of my experiment, if you will. My first podcast I put out on Podbean, and it distributes to a few others. But this one I wanted to just try exclusively on YouTube's new podcast feature. And it's actually doing better just on YouTube than it is on Podbean. So I think there's something
Mm.
about having that visual component, especially when it's something as personal as this, when you want to talk to someone else, to be able to have that
Mm.
visual component to it. But this
Mm.
platform sounds actually really amazing. You're not caught by this random ad on YouTube that's going to send you down an unnecessary rabbit hole. Chasing rabbit holes in
Mm.
homeschool is not necessarily a bad thing, especially if you're following your child learning. But when you're actually there to kind of get some help and get some support, you can get
Mm.
easily distracted, myself included, over some random news article or, oh, look, trichisics, or something that pops up. But it sounds like having all of this in one place is very, very helpful. And I've also noticed, just kind of checking it out just for a little bit, it's incredibly affordable. Incredibly
Mm.
affordable. It's like for the lowest plan, it's like $8 a month or something.
Mm. Yeah, yeah,
Less
they
than a
have.
large
So they have.
coffee.
Yeah, that's right. So I think they have tiers where I think it starts at the bottom where you've got access to their community, and then kind of jumps one, and then the top tier is like the coaching tier where you can get that one-on-one help. But yeah, yeah, it is pretty exciting, isn't it? Yeah, because I have to admit I don't go on social media because I'm very blessed. Other people distribute my videos, but I feel like I don't have time to properly homeschool my children, love my husband, do all these other things, and then I get so distracted on social media. But I get a bit, I get a bit frustrated, and sometimes I come down feeling a bit dampened by that. But I don't get
Mm-hmm.
that feeling
Mm-hmm.
on Made to Homeschool. I feel really supported and loved, and the mums are so positive. There's just so much positivity on there. And you're only allowed to talk about homeschooling, so it's very focused and niche. Um, yeah.
Well, and then there's also their fellow moms of faith, from what I understand. I've looked at and I'm familiar with several of the YouTubers that are on there. I'm actually subscribed to many of their channels. So it's a community that you can trust. You're going to be there with fellow moms of faith. You're not going to have anyone kind of slide into those Facebook groups the way they do, or any other social media group, if you will, where they're like, it's like that squirrel moment where they want to give you some random ad or draw you away from it, or give a random topic that's not going to be related to the point that you're all there for. It's kind of like, well, having coffee with friends instead.
Mm, mm. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's really beautiful. Yeah. It was, I think, when on launch day, we all hung out as contributors, and we all came in this massive, big live launch. And for, I can't remember how many hours it was, but for most of the day, we had um, YouTuber after YouTuber, like doing half an hour slots during the day. So I had 2 half-hour slots, which I tuned in for. And it was just so much fun just to interact with other homeschoolers and other YouTubers. And yeah, just a lot of fun.
Well, I think that Made to Homeschool sounds like a community that's, well, I've never heard of anything like it. And
Mm,
I think it's very much needed. And I personally cannot wait to see where it's going. I mean, it's only been out, what, maybe a month, maybe a little longer, not much, but I see great things on the horizon for it. So kudos
mm,
to you and to the other fellow YouTubers for all of your hard work and coming together as part of that community, really for the greater good, because it's not just the communities there, it's for the homeschooling community as a
mm,
whole. And it's needed. It's very much
mm.
needed.
And I think that's why it was made. It was made to fill a gap where, homeschool parents just come in there and just feel completely bewildered and feel like they don't have any friends. And whereas if you decide to homeschool, you can join this community straight away, ask all your, so-called dumb questions, which are so what everybody else is thinking when they start homeschooling, and have them answered by people who know what they're talking about.
Yes.
Instant community.
Yes. And they're not going anywhere because they're right there online.
That's right. That's right. Because as you said, I think before we were talking about it before, often you'll try and find a homeschool co-op and it just won't work out for this or that reason. But the Made to Homeschool community is, yeah, it's always there, and it's a beautiful community too.
Well, I'm going to have to check more of that out. I have to go over there and
Mm.
check more of that out because it's very exciting and something that's very neat. I've never seen anything like it. So I'm very excited for
Mm.
what's to come.
Yeah, me too.
Well, Rebecca, thank you. I know it's so early where you are. I'm
It is.
sorry. Thank you so much for getting up so early to chat with me this morning. I think your book is beautiful. I think your parenting program is beautiful. And I'm very excited to hear about all the things that's going on with Made to Homeschool and any
Mm.
developments that you've got going on there. What is on the horizon for you coming up? Where can we see you?
Oh, look, I think I'm just enjoying blogging and discovering new curriculum and reviewing them. But I feel like my real heart is YouTube. I love it. I love being able to try to effectively convey um, different curriculum, but also very much promote gospel reading, the gospel and Bible reading and prayer through what I do on that platform. So that's my big aim. But I think in terms of what's on the horizon, Kimberly, I just, believe it or not, blogging and YouTubing is my secondary job. I want to be a really good homeschool mum. I want to be a really good
Mm-hmm.
wife, a homemaker. Um, and so I think that's my focus, is being the servant of God in all those arenas, really. Yeah. So nothing huge on the horizon. And I'm very happy that way.
No, that's good. It sounds like you have your priorities right where they need to be. God, husband, family, and everything else after.
Mm. Mm.
Well, thank you so much for your time. I know your littles are probably getting ready to start the day with you, and we will
Yes,
look
they should be
forward
up
to
in.
seeing. They'll be up soon.
Yeah, they'll be up soon.
Okay. Well, we look forward to seeing more from you over at Made to Homeschool, but especially over at your YouTube channel, How to Homeschool. And thank you so much for spending time with us today. Keep in touch and take care.
Thanks, Kimberly. Bye.
Bye bye.